All right, hi friends. I promised in the last video to give you a second method as a way to look at square roots that works every single time, even if you don't notice a perfect square factor in your square root. So let's take a look. So this is another look at square roots, also known as the field trip bus. All right, I'm going to ask you also, by the way, this is dumb, but if it helps you remember, okay. Let's look at that square root symbol, and you might notice that it kind of looks like a bus. And here's our driver. So it kind of looks like a bus, and we're going to say it looks like a field trip bus. Now, remember I told you that if we don't have a number, it's implied to be a 2. And that 2 is important. So we're taking a square root here, and it's the square root of 150. This is a number that often students don't recognize has a perfect square factor, and they get stuck. What do I do next? So I'm going to show you a method that works every time. What we want to do is we want to think about a factor tree of 150. You probably remember factor trees from like way back in elementary school when you found the prime factors of a number. So we want to start with 150, and we're going to start breaking it into its prime factors. And we can start with any number that divides 150, any number. We don't have to get fancy. So if you notice that it's even, which it is, we can just divide by 2. So 150 is 2 times 75. All right, and 2 is prime. We know that's a prime number, but let's work on 75. We're going to break 75 into its prime factors. So we want to think of any factor of 75. Well, 5 divides 75. That's a perfectly good place to start. So 5 goes into 75. Let's see, how many times? So I could work out 5 into 75. Goes 15 times. So 5 times 15. Now 5's a prime number. Let's work on 15. 15, that one's easier. It's 3 times 5. All right. So we have rewritten 150 as its prime factors. And here's where we go back to our bus. So if you're in kindergarten and you go on a field trip to the zoo, the main thing you've got to have for your own safety is a buddy. Maybe you need more than one buddy so that when you go to the zoo, the gorillas don't eat you. Okay? So this number right here tells me how many buddies in a group to get off of the bus. If you don't have a buddy, you can't get off the bus. So when I look at the prime factorization of 150, I want to look for groups of 2. Well, here's one, 5 and 5. All right, so we can say I have a group of buddies. They are 5s. That means that 5 gets to get off of the bus. Now, everybody who doesn't have a buddy, they have to stay on the bus. So when I look at 3 and 2, they have to stay on the bus. So I would write them inside our square root symbol, 3 and 2. Well, we know that the square root of 3 times 2 is going to just be the square root of 6. So we've evaluated our square root. We know we got it right, and we found all of those perfect square factors, and we didn't have to think about what was the largest perfect square factor, and we've got a way to evaluate it. Let's look at another one. Square root of 48 is a good one to take a look at, so let's approach it in the same way. So if I have square root of 48, I'm going to create my factor tree for 48. And remember, we don't need the biggest factor, we just need any factor. it's even, I'm going to divide it by 2. So 48 is 2 times 24. 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. And 6 is 2 times 3. All right, it's a square root, and I'm looking for groups of 2. There's 1, and there's 1. All right, remember that when you have a group of buddies, they get to get off the bus, and we write down what we had to represent that group. We only write it one time though. So that pair of 2's gets written down, and then another pair of 2's gets written down again. So I have 2 times 2 outside of the bus. And then because I have a 3 that does not have a buddy, he has to stay inside the bus. Now this is correct, it's just not finished. 2 times the square root of 3. We would traditionally write that as 4 times the square root of 3. Okay? So let's look at one more of these. Let's say I had square root of 100. Nope, that's not a good one. That's a perfect square. We know that's 10. All right, let's think about another one that we could do. Let's see, in the last video, we did square root of 40. Let's do square root of 40. So again, let's do our factor tree. 40 can be rewritten as 2 times 20. 20 can be rewritten as 2 times 10. And 10 can be rewritten as 2 times 5. Let's go back and circle pairs of buddies. So 2 times 2 here. Now I have a third 2, but I don't have a fourth one. So this 2 has to stay on the bus. So the 2 and the 5 are going to stay on the bus. The buddy pair of 2's comes to the outside, so we write that 1 time for the pair right here. And then the 2 times 5, or 10, goes inside the bus. So this is a method that will work every single time. It is also really helpful when this number up top is not a 2. We tend to struggle when we have a cube root or a fourth root, and so this method works really well when you're looking at something like that. Remembering that if I have a 3 up here indicating a cube root, well, how many in a buddy group? 3. So I would be circling groups of 3 numbers and writing that number down on the outside of the bus 1 time. Hope this is helpful if you're having a hard time with square roots.